Hello, everyone, and welcome to the ninth and final session of this month of events, where we have basically embraced the power of the network and the celebration of it with people, projects, and places. So I want to introduce you to this last session that we have titled 15 Years of the Fab Foundation, the Legacy, Evolution, and the Vision. And it's going to be led by Sherry Lassiter and the rest of the Fab Foundation team to give you more details of what we have been working on and what the future looks like for our work and the support that we provide to the Fab Lab Network as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sherry.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are super excited. I think Norella first cued me into the fact that we were 15 years old a few months ago, and we're all working so hard and so fast that we don't often take time to step back and reflect. And so, it was very humbling to understand that we've been here for 15 years and hopefully serving the Fab Lab Network more and more over that time. So, Norella, I'm Sherry Lassiter, and I started working with Professor Gershenfeld when this was just an idea, right, in his mind. We put together a grant with the National Science Foundation here in the United States to merge physical science and computer science. So what happens when the its of the world turned into bits and the bits of the world turn into its? What happens at that boundary? And as part of this National Science Foundation grant, which I believe was about $15 million over 5 years, we were supposed to study that boundary, but you also had to do outreach of some sort. And this was about the time that Neil Gershenfeld and his colleagues here at MIT, sort of tripped over the idea of personal fabrication. And so they decided that rather than try to sort of teach, computing skills and, web development skills, which were things that we weren't really all that good at, we would try to put a subset of the tools that we use here at MIT to make and measure and modify the world. We would try to use some of those same tools and put them in communities around the world to ask the question: if you could make almost anything, what would you do with that? If you had the tools and the knowledge, what would you do with that? And so we curated a subset of these machines, which if you're in a Fab Lab or have been in a Fab Lab, you're very familiar with at this point. We have, all sorts of, we have laser cutters and CNC routing machines and high precision, numerically controlled milling machines, 3D printers. We have a very sophisticated electronics workbench, sewing for working on things like wearables, 3D scanning and printing, just all of these very enabling machines, plus the design tools that go along with them. And, they really do allow you to make almost anything. And so I think we deployed the very first lab in rural India from MIT in 2002. And since that time, the network has grown tremendously. It's doubled in size about every year and a half, following sort of a model of Moore's law. So about 2009, we realized that the network was getting way too big for MIT, and I believe Neil was in India. I'm not in India, sorry. Neil was in Norway, northern Norway, with Håkon Carlson, and they were stuck on a boat out in the middle of the ocean. And they started talking about this idea of a foundation. And at the same time, here in Boston, Mel King and I started talking about the idea of a foundation. And so in 2009, we spun off a Fab Foundation outside of MIT to really handle the growth of the global Fab Lab network. And so really, we wanted to support the growth and bring together resources that would help the network both connect and to realize its potential. And so we've been off and running ever since. In 2010, the next year, we officially launched the FAB Academy program along with EAC and a few other partners from EAC from Barcelona and a few other partners. In 2012, we deployed our first lab in Ethiopia and sort of started this process of officially working with labs around the world, helping to build labs and support them as they grew. If you turn your head to 2014, that was the first year that we officially organized as host the annual FabX event. And then in 2015, we of course hosted the FabX event here in Boston at MIT, which was really wild and crazy. And then in 2018, we really decided that we needed to reach into K through 12 to youth programs and schools to teach STEM education using digital fabrication as a catalyst for learning in these disciplines. And so we developed, I believe, scopes at that time, as well as other programs to support K through 12 educators that were teaching STEM education in their classrooms. And then that was also the year that we deployed our first network of labs. So with the Kerala startup mission in Kerala, India, we deployed a network of maybe 20 mini labs across the country, and I mean across the state of Kerala, and so that was the start of a whole new chapter in our work. And in 2023, we find ourselves with more than 120 labs that we've deployed around the world, and we are stewarding as best we can this beautiful network of 2,700 labs across the world. So that's kind of a little history in a 15-year history of the work that we've done. Next slide, please, Norella. So we like to say it's not just about the machines, it's about the people. It's about the community of practice that has come together over these years, and it's about what we can do together. We are a distributed network. We are change makers around the world. We all want to use technology and try to use technology as our platform for change, and that is like so important. It makes us a very, very coherent network, a network that votes by its feet and that works together to really make impact in our communities. Next slide, please, Norella. Our team, we have an amazing team. We are distributed. While I'm here in Boston, I'm joined by Luciano Betoldi, who's the Vice President of Operations here, and also Chelsea Lynn, who is our wave Chelsea, yes. Chelsea is our general manager. Claire Dorsett, who runs the Fab in a Box project, and it does STEM outreach for us. That's who we are here in Boston. But we have other great people distributed around the world, around the country. Rodney Brooks, Rodney, wave if you would. Rodney is our STEM outreach and corporate partner director. And then we have Abigail Barton, who may not be here this morning, but Abigail runs our Scopes DF platform. We also have, I think, who is here? Adrian is here, who helps us with all sorts of things around Fab Academy, social media, etc. And then we have Jean-Michel Molenaar. Jean-Michel is in France, and he does deployment and all sorts of IT and all sorts of other amazing things for us. We also have Abu Adam, who is in Ghana. He does a lot of our deployments and supports training and does technical support. Norella Coronell, who is in Barranquilla, Colombia, and she's a force of nature. Runs the FabX events. She does our communications, etc. We also have Sam Peterson, who has joined us for communications and outreach from. Where are you, in Virginia? You're in Virginia, right, Sam? That's right. Okay, and I think we have a few others like Fabrice Traore, who's in Canada, who helps us with deployments. Sibu Salmon, who's also helps us with deployments, and he is in India, in Kerala, India as well. It's a beautiful, beautiful team. They work very hard to try and bring to the community the support and the networking the resources and the networking that are required to help us all reach our potential. So next slide, please. And so the work that we do really is organized around these three pillars. So there's the .edu, the sort of educational outreach, whether that's to adults or to children. There's the .org. These are the social impact projects that the network gathers around, which you'll hear more about. And then there's the .com, which is really about economic development and economic opportunity. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Norella to talk about our educational work. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Yeah, as Sherry was mentioning, we work around like three different pillars that help us articulate the work that the Fab Foundation does throughout the network, but also inside the United States where it's based. So with that, I think it was a couple of years ago when in 2009, also when it was created Fab Academy, that this started growing. And so with that, I think Neil was saying yesterday that Nadia came out with the idea of the Academy of making almost anything, and then it stuck. So we currently have more than 6 different programs running in different times of the year, which allow to train the people inside the capacities, which are Fab Labs, but also outside of them. So with that, we can start with like Fab Academy, that is basically the pioneer onto the Academy programs. Currently, it's running under its 15th edition. This is a report of 2023. So currently it's running under a 15th edition. We are currently open to pre-registrations for people that are interested in joining the 2025 cycle for Fab Academy. And over this 15 years, because I think Fab Academy also has 15 years, has graduated a total of 1.3K graduates around the world. So that's a big number of people that have committed to the cause and of learning about digital fabrication and how to best implement it in the workspace. We also have the Fab Academy program, which basically focuses more onto the textile, the fashion side of it, which we identify a need that was there to be filled inside digital fabrications through the fashion industry. And currently it's on its 7th edition and has graduated more than 182 students worldwide. This is a partnership between the WAG Society, Fab Lab Barcelona, which we have also done that for Fab Academy, and they're running in September their next cycle. So if you are interested to join, feel free to scan the code and join in. Then I'm gonna hand it over to Chelsea, which she will explain us a little bit more about Fab All In.
So as Sherry mentioned, it's not about the machines, it's about the people, and Fab All In really embodies this idea. It's an interactive course that increases understanding around belonging, expanding impact, and creating community. Our first course ran in the fall of 22, and we are currently wrapping up our second course. We are about to move into final presentations, which we call Solutions Palooza. So I believe more information about coming into Solutions Palooza and hearing about these amazing projects will come from Norella shortly. This year we had about 23 speakers from around the world, representing 13 countries, share their solutions. So another idea behind the course is that that we don't need to reinvent the wheel, that if you have a question or an issue, someone in the network is working on a solution. So our goal is to bridge the gap and promote all of these amazing ideas that are being worked on. So I think we'll move on to Fab Learning Academy is another new course in the Academy program. This is a global certification program for educators to teach them who want to teach through the use of digital fabrication tools and technologies in education ecosystems. In addition to teaching digital fabrication tools and technologies, it also incorporates innovating teaching practices and macro methodologies to improve learning outcomes and engage students. The first FLA pilot ran in 2023 with 7 nodes, and this year they're expanding. I believe they have more than 10 nodes ready to go. And the applications for students will open soon, as the second course will run from September 2024 to about March of 2025. So we invite you to look into FLA if you're interested in joining the program. Thank you.
Yeah, and all of this, basically you can see the recitation on all the Academy programs and more that we are not involved directly. I think what we tried to do here is trying to explain you our roles into all of these different programs that we are currently involved, mostly under general management that supports the program, and how to make them a wider voice until the network. But if you're interested in learning more about all the different Academy programs, you can watch the recitation that was also part of Fab Month. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Sherry and explaining a little bit more about scopes. You are muted, Sherry.
Thank you. Thank you. Still make that mistake now and again. SCOPES is a terrible acronym that I made up for Scaling a Community of Practice for Educators in STEM Using Digital Fabrication. This is an experimental platform that we built back in, I think we started it back in 2016 and 17. It probably finally came online around 2018. And it really was meant to be a platform where educators could share curricular activities and lessons. They could reflect together. They could critique and share best practices. So we started it back in 2017, and it was really first initially populated by mostly our network. And at the time, our network was primarily informal education or after school, out of school education. And what we were really trying to do is figure out how to apply these tools in the classroom, in a formal classroom, and help teachers really amplify what they were teaching already in STEM, but to make it far more concrete. So there's a lot of abstraction, obviously, in STEM disciplines, and digital fabrication tools really allow a learner, or enable a learner, to make those very abstract concepts very concrete. And so they're very powerful learning tools. And so we started this community of practice largely because we had built a network of labs for Chevron across the US. We had built about 10 or 15 labs across the US, and they were all like, well, okay. And they were meant for STEM education and for girls. And every single lab came back to us and said, okay, now what do we do? And so this was kind of a response to that, to give them, jumpstart them with some content and best practices. And since that time, this, by the way, is run by, I think I mentioned this before, by Abigail Barton, who is in Pittsburgh. And she works with the Carnegie Science Center as well, in their Fab Lab. But it's a beautiful platform now that's curated. There are monthly or bi-monthly sort of curated lesson guides that come out, that show you all of the content that might be related to, say, Earth Day, or might be related to Women in Science Month, or that sort of thing. We also added contests for educators, so that whoever on a bi-monthly basis, whoever submits the most interesting lessons, gets a cash award. And then we've recently added, in the last 2 years, the fellowships, which are really meant to elevate innovative educators in the network. So these are $10,000 stipend awards for particularly exemplary work that educators are doing throughout the network. And so check it out. We've also started doing podcasts, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a really, really wonderful platform. We're kind of rethinking it. We'd love your feedback. Please write to us and tell us what you think, or give us suggestions as to what would make it more valuable for you. Okay, so what's next? Oh, Rodney, let's turn it over to Rodney.
Hello, everyone. Like Sherry mentioned, I'm Rodney Williams, the program manager for education and outreach. I'm based in Chicago. So we do have several partners that focus on corporate social responsibility. With that, they lean towards impacting the STEM education in K through 12 and higher education institutions. Can you go to the next slide for me? So with that, Chevron is one of our main our head leading partners. They have, I believe, they had 20 labs over the last 10 years. We currently had 3 new labs launch. We had the Central Coast Mobile Fab Lab, which is a combination of the MCOE, which is the Monterey County Office of Education, Hartnell College, and California State University, Monterey Bay. They come together to form this entity called the Central Coast Mobile Fab Lab. We also had 2 new HBCU labs, which are historically Black college and university labs. One was FAMU, which is in Tallahassee, Florida, and the other is Fort Valley State University, which is in Fort Valley, Georgia. They have 2 full labs with all the bells and whistles. So we're excited about them launching, and some great innovation coming out of that space. I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. So these are the 2 HBCU labs. Where Fort Valley is more focused on agriculture, and then FAMU is the lab is in the College of Education. So with that, we really have a focus on pre-service educators that are soon to graduate. We want to make sure that they have a focus on digital fabrication tools so they can take that into the classroom prior to graduating, so it won't be such a heavy lift. They can introduce students to that moving forward. I'm sorry, Norella, you might have to go back a couple slides. All right, so this is the Central Coast Mobile Fab Lab. This launch was last May, if I'm not mistaken. It was a fantastic event. Had mayors come out and all that great stuff, and representatives from the government. But this is a great innovative tool for students that are in rural areas to be able to have access to digital fabrication. So this mobile lab goes out to different schools, and it's a full lab inside of the mobile unit where students can access the tools on the mobile lab, but they can also roll off and they can come out, they can go inside of the school, they can be used outside. But Central Coast Mobile Fab Lab, it's a great team effort with those 3 entities. Next slide, thank you. So as Sherry kind of mentioned, about another aspect is the Chevron Fab STEM Fellowship. So if you see at the top left corner, those are our fellows from last year, Nathan and Peter. So we had 2 fellows. They were fantastic. The spaces that they went to, the host sites, and the fellows, they all learned from each other. So that was great. Those 2 fellows, they did our first set of podcasts, which they were able to talk about their experience with digital fabrication. This year, we added 2 additional fellows, so we have a total of 4. So if you look on the right side of the slide, those are our 4 new fellows. We have a great diverse group from folks in the United States and international fellows. So they'll start their fellowship soon. They're actually selecting their labs that they want to go to. And we also had a great great deal of host sites that were interested in hosting our fellows this year. So that was fantastic. So yes, if you see this in the next year, 2025, please apply or pass this information along. This is a great project or program initiative. All righty. All right. Another partner that we work with is the Caterpillar Foundation. So we're running a program called the Fab Futures program. So this is a 3 to 4 day PD where we're training educators to use digital fabrication tools. And when we say educators, we're talking about classroom teachers, CTE teachers, which are career and technical educators, and then also librarians. So they're able to learn these tools, and then they're able to take the tools back to the classroom. So it's a free PD. If you see the picture with the young woman with the cart, she's taking all her equipment back to her school. She's excited about that. But this is taking place. We're on our second cohort in Perth, Australia. We're working on our first cohort in the Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth Metroplex area. And this will take place in June in Texas. So we're excited about that. But the Caterpillar Foundation, they wanted to get in the realm of social responsibility and impact STEM education as well. So. All right. Awesome.
Back to me. Thank you, Rodney, for explaining all the hard work that you have been doing over the last year with all these different organizations and how do we best embrace their corporate social responsibility. So now we move on to, remember that we said that we work like in 3 pillars. We started with the .edu, that was the first one. Now we're going with the .org. And this is mainly related to regional networks and how to do the outreach that we want to do inside the network. So currently, as the Fab Foundation, we currently have a big outreach within different platforms that we use. We have over 300,000 combined audience throughout our different platforms. And basically what we want to tell you is that we have big engagement, and this is the platform for you if you want to disseminate the work that you are doing. So I think with that, I want to invite you to write us, tell us your story, or if you want to keep updated with the information, you can just subscribe to our newsletter to keep updated with what's going on inside the network. So this is the space for you. We have been growing. As Sherry mentioned before, we have been growing from one lab that we started in Boston to more than 2,700 labs across the world, and more that we are not mapping in this little map here, because I know we have different types of maps based on regions, based on locations. So I think this is one place to go, but I know there within regions and places, there are other places where you can also track that. We should probably bring a list of those in a map or somewhere that I know Jean-Michel will be excited about. But basically this creates around 35,000 users that brings to the platform, and that currently we are under a state of actually just mapping the labs within the Fab Labs.io platform. As an outreach strategy, we do the Fab events, as most of you can potentially be familiar with, but this basically has brought around 6,000 participants over the last 19 editions. So it has been wrapping up and gathering more and more people from different parts of the world. We're currently on its 20th edition. We also do have online presence with this events, and I invite you basically to Mexico for this upcoming year. We have then lined up the Czech Republic as well, and we have lined up Boston for 2026. So we already have a bigger lineup. But if you are also wanting to host the Fab events, this is the time. We will be coming back with pitches this year. So if you want to pitch for 2027, then this is the time for you to pitch in with your Fab Lab or with your organization in order to basically be the hosting site for the Fab Lab conference. We also embrace the global initiatives. These global initiatives have been like gathering over years now. Some have stood the time within 10 years. Some are even older that some of you may not have been in contact with. And we try to embrace them and bring them to value with the different topics that they provide. So, for example, we have the Fab City that became its own organization and its own nonprofit right now based in Estonia. But we also have smaller different initiatives within the network, like the Global Kits that they transition from lab to a global space. We have the Fab Care community, which is more on assistive technologies and how to innovate in healthcare, with also the Fab, I would say the Fab regional networks that are like this smaller clusters within regions, cities, or countries that basically articulate what best practices on digital fabrication in order to build community. So we do support all of those. And if you are needing to communicate anything about it, just help, like we are a space where you can do that. And if you are interested in learning more about these initiatives, I think we have ramp it up with all the Fab Month sessions. You can check them out by going to our QR code where you can learn more about them. And I want to make a special mention onto the SDG goals. Like if you are a Fab Lab that don't know where to start, I feel that SDGs can be the right path into basically getting your lab involved into an SDG goals to embrace a path for whatever project you want to go through. I think Peter has been doing an amazing work on mapping those out. So you can go and check them out. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to the .com group. This is our last pillar inside the Fab Foundation. So Jean-Michel.
Thank you, Norella. So I'm Jean-Michel. I'm based in France, but I'm absolutely delighted to work with the whole team. As Sherry mentioned, even within the .com, it's about deploying and about machines. But what it really comes to at the end is the people and the communities. So although it's the commercial side of things, we do work with sort of different sizes and different solutions. So we end up working also quite often with other nonprofits or even with humanitarian situations where we aid them also in wording things the right way to obtain funding to create these kind of spaces. So what we do in terms of a procurement solution, so really setting up these kind of labs, and this goes really from the design of the product, the design of the space, to even sometimes the creation of the space, to the transport and the installation of all the equipment. We do these sort of 4 sizes, and just after me there will be a new announcement about a new option. But basically what we have is the standard Fab Lab, which allows you to participate in Fab Academy, our educational program, and then 2 sort of smaller versions of that are much more adapted to educational environments with younger children or community centers, or maybe areas where you want to get people interested in the kind of digital tools that we use. And then sort of the other direction, we now increasingly look at and deploy what we call super labs, which are very much modeled on what Sherry talked about in the beginning, the lab at CBA, the really big sort of fabrication center that in principle can make a Fab Lab. So this is a standard Fab Lab that we add on advanced metal machining, advanced 3D printing. There's things like water jet cutting, welding, and much more. So these are often in high-level research centers or in advanced education. And we've also really started seeing that they're very interested in working together. So these super labs are sort of starting to form a different kind of sub-project within the Fab Lab Network, really also learning from each other, like how to employ these tools within education, within prototyping, and much more. Next slide, please, Norella. So we've deployed mostly the standard Fab Labs. And again, this is what most people look at because it allows you to participate in the Fab Academy. But we've also set up and rolled out literally 8 mobile Fab Labs, 20 mini Fab Labs. And in some of these cases, these mini Fab Labs actually were fabricated in a super lab. So instead of shipping 20 mini labs to a location, we set up a big lab with advanced tooling and tools, and then those actually make the smaller machines that can be distributed in, for instance, colleges or other educational environments. We're working actually on our third super lab, which is extremely exciting. And we've also set up several humanitarian labs. So this is not something we do alone, obviously. We work with humanitarian organizations who already have a team on the ground, often in refugee camps, or in some cases in disaster areas or war zones. And we help these people, before setting up anything, obviously, first assure that the kind of tools we deploy there are relevant, are useful, and are actually going to be practical to use in those kind of environments. So next slide, please. So as I said before, we really can kind of do it all. We help you first to assess, is a Fab Lab actually what you need? Because we've sometimes been contacted by organizations who heard about Fab Labs, think it's a great thing for them, and it turns out it's not actually the point where they're at, or maybe it's not exactly the thing that they understood it was. So we really want to make sure that those people who do set up Fab Labs do so in a sustainable way, and a way that they engage the community around them. And then we once we decide and they decide it's actually what they need and want, we design the inventory, the space with them, we do all the procurement, and then we ship all the goods to them either via sea or via air. And then I'm also really happy often to go to all sorts of locations on the planet to do the on-site installation. And this also shows really that we're really trying to engage with a lot of different communities, a lot of different cultures, because we always try to be mindful of the local culture, the local way of doing things. And we make sure that we have teams who speak the language, and who understand not just the technical part, but also the human part of the Fab Labs. And then sometimes we do even extended on-site training. So in some cases, I often stay a few weeks, but then I have colleagues who will stay over 4 months or even more, to really make sure that the Fab Lab becomes a solid and usable tool, and area where local communities can innovate and work together. So now I think I'm going to hand it over to Claire Dorsett, who will tell you a little bit about a new, really exciting project. Then after we'll hand it to Luciano for some even more exciting maybe news that's going to come. So Claire?
Thank you, Jean-Michel. I'm really excited to talk about Fab in a Box. So Jean-Michel talked a lot about the super labs that are so incredible, and those can cost hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. This is at the other end of the spectrum for folks in resource-constrained environments who might not be able to afford that, or who might want to kind of get their feet wet before they dive all the way in. So Fab in a Box is designed to be a low-cost Fab Lab starter kit. It includes everything that you need to run digital fabrication projects in the learning environment of your choice. And that includes, at the moment, a 40-watt diode laser cutter, including air assist and the honeycomb, and a smoke purifier, so you can run that safely on this cart in an enclosed environment. It includes a vinyl cutter, a 3D printer that is enclosed for environmental health and safety in educational settings, and then hand tools and accessories, a control computer that's preloaded with the software that you need to run all of these machines, as well as X-Design from SolidWorks, who is a really generous sponsor of this project. And then startup and troubleshooting guides to teach facilitators how to use these machines so that they are comfortable and they can impart that knowledge onto their learners, as well as curricular activities that are designed to be really scalable across contexts, which we'll talk a little bit more in just a second. And then the secret sauce here is also the cart itself. As you can see, it folds up, it can be locked and contained to move around between sites, to move around on a site. If you're in a library or in a school and you want to take it between rooms, drop it off for a few weeks at a time, or just for a few hours for the activities that you're doing, you can do that with this. What you're seeing here is a prototype. In version 2 of the cart, the top will come off right above those machines that you see there, and there will actually be full-out legs that come out. So you'll have a separate standalone workbench. And if you choose to add on equipment that is not included in the base package, like for example, a mill, it would sit right on that workbench and give you a little bit of extra room to tinker. And Norella, if you want to go to the next one. And so I mentioned that this is optimized for different settings. We recognize that there's a real need for this in schools that might not yet have the resources to fund a full-scale Fab Lab. And so that's a formal learning context, a formal classroom. We also optimize for informal learning context. That's anything that's not a formal classroom, like a museum or a science center, a library, a community center, a refugee camp, anything that isn't actually a formal classroom in a school. And quite a bit of learning takes place in those spaces, so we wanted to make sure we were optimized for them. The activities that I mentioned are also optimized for 3 different engagement levels that don't necessarily tie to ages. So we know firsthand from How to Make Almost Anything in Fab Academy, a lot of adults are coming in at a very beginner level. We also have a lot of younger learners who are coming in at a more advanced level. So rather than tie this directly to age groups, we have tied it to the number of resources and the ability level of the learners that you're working with. And so we have 3 scales. Think of them like introduction, intermediate, and advanced, but we call them exposure, exploration, and deep dive. The lightest lift of those will work if you only have 90 minutes for a workshop as a single touch point with students or learners. And then the deeper dives work if you have them for multiple workshop sessions, if they're returning week to week, if you're in a classroom and you have them day after day, or if you're doing something like a summer camp. And so we're really excited to be launching this later this summer. And I will hand it to Luciano.
Thanks, Claire. So we're really excited to make this announcement, and we're just not quite ready yet. So take this as sort of the pre-announcement to the announcement. So we're hoping in about a month we'll have more info for you all. But it is confirmed. We have secured a location. We've been looking for the past, say, 4 years, I think, at this point, for a location where, we can have not only our offices, but also a proper lab that we can use not only to engage with our local community here in the greater Boston area, but also to serve sort of as a space where we prototype what the future of Fab Labs looks like, and offer sort of, specific training for people that want to become managers, and all of these great ideas that sort of we've been kicking around for a while, but just haven't had the space and the opportunity to develop. So, like I said, in about a month, I think we'll be able to share more details of kind of more exact location, building, more ideas like that. But we're really excited. And sort of right around a year from now, early next year, and we all know construction, so it may be summer of 2025. But next year we'll be ready to go with the new HQ, and then hopefully you guys will also all come and visit us and be a part of Fab 26, which I think HQ is going to be a big part of that. So we look forward to welcoming you here then, and stay tuned for more news in the next month.
So just sort of wrapping up here, our vision for 2024 and beyond, well, there are a lot of things that we want to do. First, the global headquarters is going to be front and center for us. We'll finally get to serve our own community, which we're super excited about, as well as the global network. We want to center equity and inclusion in our work, because if you look across our network, we're 2,700 labs in 135 countries, and those are the ones that those are only the ones we know about. There are probably many, many others, but so we're very diverse, but we aren't necessarily very inclusive or equitable. And so we're doing a lot of work to frame our programs and our outreach around equity and inclusion, and trying to include all the mind share of the world in the great challenges and solutions that we develop, and not just for the few. We want to track the growth and continue to help scale the network. FabLabs.io is now something that, which is where the great map, one of the great maps in the network resides. We want to turn that into more of a useful tool for the network, a useful resource beyond just a map. And we want to be able to really track our growth, not only just in terms of labs, but in terms of our impact. Who's doing great work in education, who's doing great work in economic development, et cetera, et cetera. So we really are doing work trying to develop and refine kind of pedagogy and practice in the classroom for younger learners, for K-12 learners. And so that is something that is that we will continue to work on and try to grow. Our communication across the network. I think communication is key to us being able to work together and have larger impact than we might have as an individual or an individual lab. So communication, we're investing in strengthening our partnerships and creating new partnerships. This year, especially with the development of the headquarters, is a real opportunity to bring new partners to the table that can help support the great work across the network. And so that's one of our goals. Access to the FAB events. We usually gather every year in one place in the world, but that's really hard for everybody. And so we're trying to develop new ways and new regional kinds of FAB conferences that can be more inclusive of everyone. So that's another goal. And we are looking for long-term funding for applied research, not only in our own headquarters space, but also for these great programs that are emerging across the network. And so just know that we're here for you. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your ideas. We want to hear your feedback. And we want to provide anything that we can to help you and your lab reach its potential. And so it's been our great pleasure to serve in that role for the last 15 years, and we're looking forward to the next 15 years, hopefully doing more and better. So thank you very much. And Norella, I turn it back to you.
Yeah, and we want to embrace that we have not been here alone. We have been here with all the Fab Labs that have grown, have reached out to us, and that have expanded the network, because we couldn't done this without you, but also with different partners that we have allied in the last couple of years. And here are a few of them, but we have partnered with more than 135 partners in this 15-year journey that we started in 2009. 2009. Yeah, it's hard for me to separate those numbers. 2009. So yeah, we want to thank you. We want to tell you that we want to partner with more of you. We want to make big projects. We want to embrace the impact that the community has been doing for this many years. I think we're now shifting more and more into spaces, machines, cool, but nothing can be done without the people. So how do we show the quantity and the quality of the impact that the community is doing throughout the world? I think there is a lot of potential in that, and I know many of Fab Labs and partners are doing great things that we don't know about. So I think it's that time to reach out and to communicate what you're doing, and how can we basically open up the spectrum of that communication to get to a wider audience. I think as I don't know, I think it's an anonymous quote, but it's like if we do it alone, you get nowhere, and if we do it together, we get somewhere, or something around those lines. So I want to thank and mention those, and I think with that we're mostly over the session, and I want you to reach out to us. So if you want to stay updated, you can check out our different media outlets that we have been creating. And if you want to be featured in any of those because you have a great story, you just reach out to us directly. Our contacts, or reach out to communications@fabfoundation.org or info@fabfoundation.org, or subscribe to our newsletter. I think we are having a really big impact in LinkedIn nowadays. So I think that's a platform where we can engage as well. And contact us if you have any doubts, any questions, any situations. I think we are here to support you in any way we can. So I'm opening up the invitation to that, and I have added a couple of links. So I don't know if there's any questions in the chat. I think we wanted to just explain our journey, where we started, where we're at, and let you know that the journey still continues with all the hard work that we together have been doing over the last couple of years. So I think with that, if there's no questions in the chat, I want to thank you all for your time. I know it's Tuesday morning, hectic work days. So thank you for those that have joined the session live, and thank you for the ones that are watching us on YouTube, and hope that we can make connections and create future impact within the community. With that, I want to close it and thank you for your time. So thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.